Hi, I'm Mike, owner of the In-Groove in Phoenix, Arizona. Today I'm doing another video showing you guys what I am bringing into my collection this week. I got a couple of new releases, and then I've got some stuff that comes from collections, eBay purchases, stuff I've hunted out, stuff I've had sitting in boxes in the back of the store for years, and I just recently found. But I'm going to start off with the newer titles, the stuff that kind of recently came out. The first one is actually the last record I listened to, and that is Donald Byrd at the Half Note with Pepper Adams, Duke Peterson. Let's see, this is Jazz at the Waterfront. Great record. Live record, of course, at the Half Note. A few things I'll mention about this. Not only is this a great record musically, this is one of those live records that kind of was recorded so well it almost sounds like a studio record. Very minimal audience interaction. You know, they have the classic Blue Note announcer at the beginning of the record, which I find kind of quite nice because on this particular record, I always get a kick out of, the introducing Donald Byrd and his new band, with Pepper Adams and Duke Peterson, legends. But at the time it was, it was just Pepper Adams and it was just Duke Peterson. And now you listen and it's like, wow, this is one hell of a lineup. But great tone poet. They actually replicated the original stereo by actually affixing a gold sticker to the mono jacket. One of the things I wish they would do is actually use the embossed sticker like the originals had. I don't know why they can't do that. They go through so much effort to get these things so fantastically recreated, as well as going back and putting that sticker. Why don't we get the puffery on the sticker? I don't know. But yeah, RTI, all analog, cut by Kevin Gray. Great record. Who does the introduction? Ruth Mason does the introductions on this. Really good record. Enjoyed this a lot. Another new record. This was supposed to come out, was it 2020? Maybe the beginning of 2021. It's like a year and a half late. This record has been the bane of my existence. Push back, push back, push back. But yeah, now it is finally here. The Oscar Peterson Trio, Night Train. Fantastic record. His piano, so exceptionally well recorded. When it comes to jazz, because Van Gelder recorded so many iconic jazz records, piano is not something that you might be used to hearing sounding this good. But the Oscar Peterson Verve stuff is exceptionally well recorded. I love this record. I love the way it starts out. Obviously, it's called Night Train, right? He does a cover of Night Train. The minute I put this record on, I always go back in my mind to Back to the Future. I can't help it. Just that flashback, where he kept going and repeating, and it has that Night Train playing through it. This, to me, kind of seems like maybe an alternate deleted scene to where he goes back, and there's a loungy version of Night Train playing. I don't even know why I told you guys all that, but yeah, that's... in my head, that's what I picture every time I hear this record. Exceptionally well recorded record. It is finally here. The wait is over. Killer cover. Big locomotive on the front. Barreling across the countryside. That is part of the Acoustic Sounds Verve series stuff that they're doing. Essentially a tone poet competitor. All analog. I want to say this was cut by Ryan Smith. Yeah, press the QRP. Doesn't say who was cut by. Let's check it out. Press that QRP. They were using Stoughton at the beginning to do these jackets. I think there's an alternate company now. I think it's in Mexico that actually is doing these really high quality covers now. And that's who is probably doing this, because I noticed they no longer reference Stoughton on the hype sticker. And when they made the transition, there was actually a time where they had the new hype sticker, which was slightly bigger, over the old hype sticker covering Stoughton. But yeah, this was done by Ryan Smith. But yeah, great record. Highly recommend. Very accessible, very easy for, my wife, who absolutely despises jazz, I can put that on and she's not wanting to murder me, which is always a good thing. A new record, Skolo Hofo. Oh, the band is Skolo Hofo. And the name of the record is, John Scofield and Joe Lavono. this is a really good record, and one that I had streamed a while back. Streaming, it sounded like Dookie. It was a horrible sounding stream. It's just cold, shrill, you know, but that's streaming for you. I never owned it on CD. It originally only came out on CD. This is the first release on vinyl, I believe. But this was a record that was originally recorded all analog at 30 IPS on analog tape. Came out in 2003, maybe, recorded in 2002. I think it came out in 2003 originally. A fantastic record. But sonically, I was blown away. Like, it took me a while to actually put it on because I remember streaming and thinking, not much of it. But sometimes streaming can have that effect on me anyways, to where it's so shrill, cold, uninviting that it affects the music. You know what I mean? It affects, especially I think it's more with new music it affects, versus if it's something like Dark Side of the Moon, it's still enjoyable to listen to it. I mean, you know, because you know all the tunes, and I think your brain kind of fills in the shortcomings of streaming. But on new music, I find myself, like this, for instance, being kind of unimpressed with it overall, and then just saying to myself, you know what, that's not that good. But then when you get the actual record and put it on, it's like, man, holy shit, this is a great record. It sounds fantastic. It's musically fantastic. I love, you know, Schofield's guitar playing. He kind of reminds me of, you're supposed to say this, I know artists hate being reminded of anything, but I think of this as a compliment. He has that very clean, quiet, type, soulful playing of Kenny Burrell. And that's, I think, an extreme compliment. Kenny Burrell isn't, well, he's still alive. Don't think he's playing guitar anymore, but he's an amazing guitarist. But yeah, recorded in 2002. Let's see, July 30th and 31st. Mastered by Kevin Gray. But check out the back. Great Tone Poet. It's a double. I highly recommend this. I don't, because, you know, I'm not a CD guy, and streaming, like I just mentioned, is less than desirable. Modern jazz is much harder for me to get into because there's not a ton of modern jazz on vinyl. You go through Schofield's catalog, for instance, and you look at everything he's done in the last 30 years. A couple records are on vinyl, and everything else is CD or downloads. So, yeah, I love the fact that they are actually doing these new titles on the Tone Poet label and the Blue Note Classic. It is unfortunate because when they do them, they don't sell that well. They sell significantly better than if it was released as anything else. But when you compare this to even that Donald Byrd live record, or, you know, forget about Blue Train, but the sales numbers are, you know, a 10th to a 20th of some of those other bigger titles. Okay, let me show you guys some of the other stuff from this week. George Thorogood and the Destroyers. This is not a very expensive record, but I'm picky about bringing things into my collection that aren't rare. And the reason being is I own a record store. If I just brought home everything, I would need another store just to hold my collection. My house is already being overrun. So when it comes to common records like this, I really make sure they're absolutely perfect. Otherwise, I don't bring them home because I just don't want to clutter up the house with, you know, VG records. But I personally love George Thorogood. One Scotch, one bourbon, one beer on this. Fantastic track. Love his guitar playing. One of the very first CDs I've ever owned when I was a kid was a George Thorogood live CD. And you kind of, when you're younger, you have a different experience with this music because I don't remember having very much music. You know, I had a dozen albums. So the albums you had, I don't know if you would say you loved them or you were forced to love them, but, you know, I played it all the time. It's all, you know, you only have X amount of records. So you put the CDs on repetitively, or the record repetitively, and you grow to love it. I had a Rolling Stones, technically their last album, not the blues cover album, but Bigger Bang. I had a Chevrolet S10 that the CD player broke, and it played, but it wouldn't eject the CD. So I listened to that CD maybe 200-300 times. Commercial came on the radio, you know, didn't want to listen to what was on the tunes. All right, listen to, you know, the Stones. I'll hear Rain Fall Down for another 500 times, whatever. But I learned to love that record. And I don't know if it was because it was beat into my head, and maybe that's the case with the George Thorogood stuff, but what a fun, energetic player. But I bought that $100,000 collection. I've been cranking through that here. I'm pretty much done with it at this point. Now it's just bringing this stuff home, getting it cleaned, and alphabetized into my collection. But I got to say, it was a beautiful first run, a run of minty, as you can see in the Shrink George Thorogood records. I just grabbed one to show you. This came in a collection. This is not something I would probably listen to because I'm not a fan of Japanese records, but I could see myself doing a shootout with this record in the future. Who knows? Maybe Mobile Fidelity does a off-the-wall one-step. I'm sure if they can, they would. And if they were given Thriller, you know, why wouldn't they be given off-the-wall? So, you know, I've got many incarnations of this record, so it just seemed like this was something that I would grab just in case I did a shootout in the future. Phenomenal record. More R&B, obviously, if you shouldn't really have to tell you about Off the Wall, but a little bit more R&B and less poppy like Thriller was, but great record. Here is a record that I actually fell in love from a young age because of my father. My father had this on CD from the BMG 13 CDs for a penny deal, and I listened to it a lot growing up. And you know, this is an original UK Vertigo that came from that same promo Big Dollar collection. It's full run of the Thin Lizzy stuff in there, including the early records. The Thin Lizzy stuff in the United States is not very easy to get. Jailbreak, you see some of the more popular albums with the hits on them a little bit more frequently, but even those are really difficult to get. He had pretty much a full run of either like white label promos or UK Vertigo. He had like the choice copies of this stuff, and to get it all in one chunk was absolutely fantastic. But great record, and this is probably, and I picked this one because I think this is probably my favorite Thin Lizzy record. But sounds great. This is one of those records that doesn't have big hits on it, but from front to back, it's just great. Fantastic record. Okay, in that same collection was something that, you know, I've been doing this for a very long time, and you know, there's something you just don't see very often. As a record store owner, it's like a running joke. You don't see near mint James Brown records. You don't see near mint Chuck Berry records. And you don't really see near mint Beach Boy records. Near mint in the Shrink. Look at this. Beautiful. The records on these are just unbelievable. Like stone, mint, unplayed. The only thing they have is they got a little bit of that storage scuffing because they've been sitting in the sleeve for, you know, damn near, what is it, 20, 55, 60 years in that range. But beautiful, in the Shrink, Beach Boys. And there was a huge run of these just in the Shrink. All mono, except for Pet Sounds. Pet Sounds was duophonic. I'm thinking to myself, I got to that portion of the box, I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, oh, this is fantastic. Oh, you know, there's summer days. Here's Beach Boys today. I'm like thinking to myself, oh, this is great. I'm going to get a beautiful mono. No, it's duophonic. I'm like, oh. I've got multiple copies of Pet Sounds, but I don't have them in this like near mint, unplayed, in the Shrink condition. But now I pretty much have everything up through the early 70s, near mint. In the Shrink, the earliest albums aren't, because I don't think they originally even came in Shrink. That's way too early, early 60s. But most of them are near mint in the Shrink, except for my random one of Pet Sounds, which is duophonic. Oh well. In that same collection, one of my favorite bands of all time. My wife and me both love Danny Elfman. She loves him for all his soundtracks, and I love him for Oingo Boingo. But this came part of a full run of Oingo Boingo, and I want to say this whole, I thought they were all gold standards, but maybe not. But this is a record that I've never found like just an all-around perfect copy until now, so I've not brought one home. But look how clean, no ring wear, near mint, just fantastic. Definitely their most desirable album, I think, at this point. You know, Weird Science, Dead Man's Party. This is the album that seems to be the one this is the album that everybody wants. So I got a full run of the stuff, which was nice. Still going through a jazz collection I had bought a while back. I originally pulled out all of the higher quality stuff, like the really higher end Blue Notes, that kind of stuff, but I had a lot of stuff like this in there. This is a great record. Impex did it. The Impex record sounds great. To have an original that's this clean is fantastic. Art Blakey's Hard Bop. Original Columbia 6i. This is a beautiful 1A pressing, 1A, 1D. Really, really clean. A little bit of that paper scuffing. You know, that's kind of a side effect of near mint records that are of this age. You know, if you have a record sitting in a paper sleeve for 60, 70 years, it just develops that kind of, it's kind of a bag rash, record acne, paper scuffing. Not audible, but it's there. It has a little bit of that, but, you know, overall, that's a really killer copy of this record. So I have one of these in my collection now, but not to this shape. So I've been bringing, there's a ton of killer stuff that's going to go into the gold member section of the website in the next 2 weeks. I've just been pulling out the Boingo stuff, my replacement Thin Lizzy, my replacement Hard Bop, this next one, also from that same collection, Jackie McLean, Destination Out. This is an original, beautiful, deep groove stereo copy from that collection. Was just, oh man, one of the best jazz collections I ever bought. Not because it had a bunch of huge heavy hitters, but because it was just so many solid, difficult to find titles and just killer collection, you know, killer condition. I mean, it goes on and on and on. I've been trying to make a run at the Blue Note catalog. It's kind of a pipe dream, you know, when you think about it, because there's so many Blue Note titles. But I'd love to get all the Blue Note era stuff. So that's the 1500 series and then essentially up to 4250 when they sold to Liberty. And I would love them all as original first pressings in monos and stereo. And I have such a huge chunk, and I've been working on it for 10 years. And if I could go back in time, I really wish I was a little bit more aggressive, you know, 10 years ago, well, 9 years ago, 8 years ago, because now the prices are just, it's just insane. And I think, you know, you think, oh, the reissue is going to kill the price of the, you know, these new tone poets, Music Matters, these are going to kill the prices of the original. No, that's not what happens. These reissues key more people into this music, and then they're like, boy, I'd love to own an original of this. So they just become more expensive and just harder and farther out of reach. So it's nice when you get a collection and you can add 20 or 30 records to the, you know, check it off the list because of that. And here's another one. Dexter Gordon, Getting Around. This is, I didn't check the pressing on this one. I got to compare this. This, I'd have to look it up. Van Gelder, this is not a Plastilite. Plastilite. Say it, Mike. Plastilite. This is not a plasticite. I'm just joking. Record. I've worked really hard to try to, knowing what it is for decades and just saying it wrong for decades. I'm trying. Normally I don't care. You know, I'm not, I laugh at the PC, you know, the punctuation police in the comment section, but this one I've been trying to get right for a while now. But yeah, Dexter Gordon, Getting Around. I think they did it as a Blue Note classic. Love the cover. Just hanging out there on all the bicycles, getting ready to get around. Great cover. This might be a second. I'd have to look it up. And this was the coolest part of one of the, I opened the box up. This is from, again, that $100,000 collection. I only grabbed a few, but what do I see in that $100,000? You know, I need the wins like this because there's so much like mediocre country folk $5, $3, $2 records in that collection. But, and you think to yourself, you know, when you cost average what you paid out for it, so you're like, oh my God, This was a $20 record, dollar box. This was a $20 record, dollar box. This was a $20 record, dollar box. But you get into these like random nuggets, and one of them was a complete run of US first pressing Smith records, all gold stamp promos. So I got Rank, beautifully unplayed, gold stamp promo. The Comp, Louder Than Bombs, gold stamp promo. Mita's Murder with, this is the American pressing, which includes How Soon Is Now. They put that on the American pressing, gold stamp promo, and because it's a promo, they put the hype on the jacket as opposed to the shrink, which typically got lost. And then there was also a run of UK stuff. So here's Hateful of Hollow. I have most of these. So again, the dupes, they'll come home, they'll go on the website or in the store. But because although I have them, I don't have, this is kind of like a matching set of beautiful mint gold stamp promos to go on the shelf. But yeah, that's a relatively small video to show you guys this week. But yeah, check us out online on the website, theingroove.com. Until next time.